First off, we've been notified by the Meridian that there's been a run on Diet Mountain Dew. Folks, this is a conference for liver disease. I need you folks drinking water and juices, okay? It might be the kickoff point for another conference in the future. The effects of Mountain Dew. Obviously not true. It's an honor and pleasure to be here today and to be speaking with someone as esteemed as Dr. Box. I hope that this is a great presentation for all of you. We're gonna be pairing off, doing different discussions at different points, and then we're gonna do a full Q&A at the end. So hopefully that works with everyone. And with that, if there's no questions, I'll get right to it. Good? Okay, perfect. My journey to liver disease actually started with a digestive disorder called ulcerative colitis. At the age of 24, I was having lots of digestive issues and had to go through a battery of tests to figure out what exactly was wrong with me. And also going through that journey was a trial and error of lots of medications. But you can imagine that being a young 23, 24-year-old, and this is my first foray into medical disease or medical problems, I was scared. I was confused. Didn't know what to do. I was getting medical terminology wrong. I was embarrassing myself at appointments, talking to doctors, and not just because they were going to infiltrate places in my body I didn't like going. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll meet up later. But ultimately, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and I started a medication called mercaptopurine. Mercaptopurine was a medical marvel for me because it gave me my life back. Where I was going to the bathroom 20 times a day and couldn't figure out, how to balance life and disease, mercaptopurine gave me that opportunity. But it also required that I go and have blood work done every 3 months. And after about 5 years, my liver enzymes started to go a little bit sideways. They first started to increase a little bit. They would flatten off, increase, flatten off, almost look like a set of stairs. And it was at that point where doctors felt that it's possible I may have a liver disease, but I was going to require further testing. So at this point, it's a good opportunity to have Dr. Box come up, because if there's anyone in the world who's an expert on liver, it is certainly this gentleman next to me. So Dr. Box, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay, well, I know there are some transplant recipients. There are certainly transplant recipient caregivers in here, including my lovely wife, and thank you for coming. This is an aside. This is not my first exposure to the Global Liver Institute. I don't know how many years ago it was, but Donna was considerably younger then. But she was a remarkable force at a Chronic Liver Disease Foundation meeting that was held here in DC. And it was sort of the early years of the Global Liver Institute. And I think you all should give a round of applause, not only for Donna, but for yourselves for being here today. Okay, we're starting at a very high-level overview of the liver. We're going to start with the anatomy of the human liver as you see. So if this is a review for some of you, please forgive me. But let's start over here on the left-hand side of the slide with the, external moved over here. This is external to the left and internal to the right. It jumped over for some reason. Anyway, this is a liver, or an artist's rendition of such, and it is sort of reddish brown. Just think about that calf's liver in the grocery store. It's about that color. So this is a dome-shaped wedge. Why in the world is it a dome-shaped wedge? By the way, it's a heavy wedge. It's 3 to 4 pounds, and that will vary depending on the height of the person who carries it, as well as the capacity of the rib cage to handle it, because this liver is stuck up underneath your diaphragm. The diaphragm being that muscle that separates the chest cavity from the abdominal cavity, and the liver lives very happily tucked up underneath this right rib cage. And if you just dig in there, you can't feel it unless you've got a big liver. If you can feel your liver, let's talk, okay? So, it is a wedge, a dome-shaped wedge, and as you see, there is a left, I don't know if this works, Oh, let's not do that. That's too early. There's a left lobe and a right lobe. The left lobe being considerably smaller than the right. And you see they are suspended with a couple of ligaments called oh, sorry, I can't hit the right button. Man, I need to go back to school on this one. So, anyway, they're suspended with a couple of ligaments, the falciform ligament and teres ligament. This is not dividing the lobes, they are absolutely integrated. And by the way, these are big lobes, but within the big lobes are the true functional units of the liver called lobules. There are literally thousands of lobules within each lobe. And that is where the 500 functions of the liver is transpired. It's an incredible organ. Don't you believe it's the most important organ in the body? Yes. So, we have the left and the right lobe. They're full of lobules. This liver is a highly vascularized organ. At any one point in time, it contains about 14% of your blood volume. That's about 1/7 of your blood volume for something that is 3 or 4 pounds, right? So, big container of blood because it performs so many critical functions on the blood that is delivered to it. So you see here 3 vessels, a dark red, a dark blue, and a light blue blood vessel. The dark red blood vessel is the aorta. The aorta being that big vessel that comes off the left side of the heart, arches over some vessels in the chest, goes through the diaphragm. Once it gets into the abdominal cavity, branches start to pop off going to every organ within your abdominal cavity, and it is carrying highly oxygenated blood. There is not an organ in your body that works well without oxygen, including the liver, which needs a lot. It's the most metabolic organ in your body. Also, coming into the liver from the bottom, this light blue area, oh, I got it right this time. This light blue area, it is a vessel from the gut. It carries everything from the stomach, the spleen, and both the large and small intestine, right? And the small intestine is where everything happens as far as our nutrition. Anything we put in our mouths that get into our gut, for the better or the worse, will be absorbed into the bloodstream from the small intestine, and that is loaded with nutrients and everything else that we put in our bodies, and it goes directly to the liver. First pass. The liver gets the first shot at all of these nutrients, mixes it with this wonderfully oxygenated blood, and does 500 things simultaneously with it. It's an incredible organ. And you also see, tucked underneath the underside of the liver, the gallbladder, which stores bile made in the liver. And the bile has both metabolic byproducts that need to be excreted, as well as some components that go into the bile that are used in the gut. It's a storage site. Obviously, 100,000 people in this country every year have it removed, so we can live just fine without it. But the bile is taking the consequences of liver metabolism to the gut. And the liver itself is getting bathed with highly oxygenated, very nutritious blood from the hepatic artery and the portal vein. And then after everything happens to the products that are delivered, the products that are made in the liver are then taken out the backside of the liver and dumped into this thing called the inferior vena cava, which goes to the heart. All right, external. Internal. Let's cut the liver from the top down, very sharp knife. Let's go over here to the right-hand side. This is the internal appearance of the liver. And as you see, these vessels branch. They ramify up in the liver, increasingly smaller, just like a tree trunk branches. The branches get increasingly smaller as they get out to the leaves, and eventually these are microscopic branches. And as you see, the artery and the portal vein and the bile duct system all hang out together. They run as a triad. And that's because they're responsible for delivery and the output. And after they share all that blood with the lobules, where the business is taking part, then the hepatic vein gets the output from the lobules. It drains out the hepatic veins into the inferior vena cava, back up to the heart to be disseminated to every organ in the body that depends on the liver. So for that is the anatomy. Let me see where we're going from here. All right. Don't worry, I do let Dan talk a little bit, but as you've seen, they're in the process. Okay, what does the liver do? Well, I'm not going over 500 things for you, but I'm going to try to group them into some large blocks and help you really appreciate what this liver is doing for you right now, because you just ate breakfast and it's still working on it, right? So we eat, we chew, and the process of digestion actually occurs as soon as things hit your mouth, because there's amylase that starts to break down sugar. Goes into the stomach, sees a little acid, then it gets into the small bowel where things really start to happen as far as the breakdown of your meds, your food, and what you put into your body that's liquid or in any other shape. And the gut absorbs these partially digested nutrients. There's protein, fat, carbohydrates, right? The three main nutrients. And it takes it to the liver through the portal vein, but that's not finishing the job on the digestion. The liver continues to break it down into amino acids from proteins, into simple sugars like glucose from your carbohydrates, and into the high energy form of fat, a little branch of the triglycerides called free fatty acids. Those are the basic building blocks of all the things the liver is doing for us. Now, after the liver creates enzymes, creates metabolic pathways, creates other proteins that are necessary for every function that goes on in your body, some of these proteins have to be carried. They don't nicely go in the blood without a partner. So the liver also makes the transport proteins. And the most common transport protein is albumin, which those of you who are familiar with liver disease have heard the word albumin. It's a critical transport protein. Now, the liver also has an interesting relationship with cholesterol, and I just bring this up because it's an example of how things go both ways in the liver. We eat cholesterol. Cholesterol is necessary for the membrane of everything in the body. It's also critically important for red blood cells. It's critically important in your brain. It gets a bad rap because these cardiologists out here have given it a bad name. But we need cholesterol. But if we can't use it all, or we just can't get it into the cell, it comes back to the liver, and the liver then breaks it down. Now, that can be overwhelming. Cholesterol runs freely and gets stuck where it shouldn't be. But it breaks cholesterol down into a couple of things, but one of them are bile salts, which go into the bile, into the gut, which are part of the process of absorbing fat into your body. So just an example of how the liver recycles things. It creates bile with its buddy, the biliary tree. The biliary tree is something that we are going to hear more about. And the cells of the biliary tree make a liquid into which all the byproducts go, and it flows out. As you may know, if you've ever seen bile, it's green, it's yellow, sometimes it's tan, it changes colors, but it's a critical product of the liver as well. Now, there's always excess, and the liver is made to sustain the famine. You know, we used to be hunter-gatherers, and we could not eat for days at a time, and the liver would store excess carbohydrates in the form of glycogen. It would store excess fat in the form of triglycerides. Those are energy sources. The favorite energy source of the liver is actually free fatty acid. That's 9 calories per gram versus 4 from protein, 3.4 from carbohydrate. That being said, glycogen is available in it's a very compact form of sugar, that the liver can store on it when it needs it, or when the brain needs it, or the muscles need it, because we're not getting enough, it breaks it down, sends it out. It also stores vitamins A, D, E, K, and it stores minerals, the two critical, iron and copper. Now, it also is a modifier, a detoxifier, a filter. It modifies medications to make them useful. Not all meds go directly into the system and work. Many of them need to be modified in order to be effective. The liver does that for many of your meds. It also detoxifies things that we put into our system either by accident or on purpose. What is the most commonly ingested toxin?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. Very good. Yes. So a little bit of alcohol. Pardon?
That was a really quick
He was just embarrassed. He knew.
I don't get embarrassed.
So a little bit of alcohol the liver can handle, even in modest amounts. It exceeds the liver's ability to appropriately detoxify, and then the breakdown process creates things that are bad for the liver, aldehyde being the case in alcohol. There are other breakdown processes in the body that the liver has to take care of as well. Your muscles are constantly breaking themselves down, building themselves up with better muscle fibers and proteins. The breakdown of protein at the muscular level produces a product called ammonia. So you liver transplant recipients, or you caregivers who've taken care of people with advanced liver disease may have heard the term ammonia. It's a toxin to the brain. The brain doesn't work well. The liver takes ammonia, converts it to a product called urea, puts it into the bloodstream, and the kidney gets rid of it. Well, when that overwhelms the kidney, we have encephalopathy. So, it's a detoxifier and it's a filter. Red blood cells in our body carry highly oxygenated blood to every organ that needs it. They have a lifespan of 3 to 4 months. During that last month of their life, they begin, like we do, to shrink. They get wrinkly. Yeah. And they begin to stick to each other, and they don't carry oxygen as well, and so they are identified by the liver, and it's buddy the spleen. The liver has a specific cell called a phagocyte, gobbles them up, takes the hemoglobin, that is the carrier of oxygen, breaks it down into iron and bilirubin, saves the iron in the liver, sends the bilirubin to the bile. Don't worry, I'm almost through. It also participates with the hematologic system by making clotting factors. Trust me, I don't care how many ties, how much cautery your surgeon has, when he or she cuts you open, if you don't have adequate clotting factors, you're going to die. You'll bleed out. The liver makes 9 of the 13 necessary clotting factors. So it's part, definitely, of the red blood cell system. Lastly, it's a filter for bacteria. The gut is not an iron tube, so to speak. Bacteria wiggle their way through the gut wall into the blood that's going back to your liver. The liver has special pathways that identify them. Call in the cavalry, call in the immune system, gobble them up. And lastly, because it contains almost 15% of your blood, when the liver gets sick, it becomes a major factor in how blood flows. It gets stuck behind the scarred down cirrhotic liver. Many organs don't do so well, namely the kidneys, which you just heard about from Mark. Kidneys fail in liver disease as well because the liver is stealing their blood flow. So with that, I've given you that review. I think you'll be interested in Mark's, I'm sorry, not Mark. Who are you? Dan.
I've been called worse.
Yeah. Too bad.
So, what's important to take away from that, really, from a patient perspective, in all honesty, right, is that's an infinitely more comprehensive explanation of liver function and liver anatomy than I've received from my 20 years at Google University. Right. And obviously everyone here can attest to that, right? As you're introduced for the first time into a medical situation, you don't have that level of knowledge. So to hear it, if you're in the early stage of liver disease, to hear that now, today, trust me, it's a godsend. And if this is ever being recorded, you're going to want to watch that segment over and over until you know it just as well as Dr. Box does. Going back to my journey, though, I was at a point where doctors felt that I could potentially have a liver disease, so they wanted me to go for more invasive testing. And the testing that I was going to go through was one called an ERCP. Anybody familiar with the ERCP? A few folks? Okay. For those that are not, an ERCP is basically a procedure where they take a tube and they put it down your throat, they navigate to your liver, and then they look around the inside of the liver and can hopefully diagnose, what's going on from there. I was diagnosed with a disease called primary sclerosing cholangitis, or PSC for short. Again, I see some folks nodding. For the folks that aren't aware of PSC is a slowly progressing disease where, if you think of the biliary tree, as Dr. Box just described, first it starts off looking like a set of beads where you have openings and then tight strictures, opening and tight strictures. And as time goes on, those strictures will become very tight, and it would ultimately lead to liver failure and death without the intervention of a liver transplant. So obviously you know where this is going. I had a liver transplant, but before I even get there, I need you to get your phones out because clothes are coming off right now, folks, and you're gonna want this. This became a man versus liver situation. As you can imagine, my friends and family have been sending me t-shirts of all sorts of funky names on them, man versus liver. But once I was confirmed to have PSC, all seriousness, it became a man versus liver situation. This became a situation where I needed to educate myself. I wanted to be the patient that lived the longest. I wanted to put off transplant the longest. I wanted to be the #1 transplant patient or future transplant patient that ever lived, and it all started with this mindset of man versus liver. And that's where my true journey of liver disease began. Don't worry, more clothes are going to come off. But thank you, I appreciate that. My wife's going, don't do it, don't do it. I've seen what's underneath there. You're going to regret that. But I think it actually is a good point to actually hand it back to Dr. Box, who's going to talk about some of the ways that you can either test for or diagnose liver disease. So I'm going to go with Dr. Box.
All right, very good. Okay, so I won't get quite as lost in the weeds as I was because this is not nearly as exciting. But those of you who have, again, been part of any process of taking care of or being a liver patient have probably heard of all of these laboratory tests that are portrayed for you on the slide. And I'm not going to go over each one of them and what it signals. But I do want to make sort of take care of a pet peeve, okay? So my colleagues and I frequently make the mistake of referring to liver enzymes as liver function tests. Some of the liver tests are liver function tests. Most of them, quite frankly, refer to liver injury. So if you look at what I've listed under the word hepatic, by the way, who knows what the derivation of the word hepatic is, right? It is Greek for liver, right? So we have a liver-related laboratory test, an AST, ALT, and an LDH, actually leak into the blood when the liver cells themselves are injured by whatever your liver disease is. There's 100+ liver maladies. So anything that hurts a liver cell, a hepatocyte, bleeds these labs, AST, ALT, LDH, into the blood. Anything that hurts the biliary tree, as was the case in Dan's situation, leaks alkaline phosphatase and gamma GT into the blood. These are injury tests of the liver and the biliary tree. The functional related tests are levels of albumin, levels of other protein called globulins. That's what happens when your hepatocytes don't make enough. Those levels fall. When your biliary tree gets blocked by a scar or a stone or a tumor, bile backs up. That means the biliary tree is not functional. Or if the liver cells can't deal with bilirubin, it leaks into your blood. So the bilirubin is a function test. The albumin is a function test. And the INR, or if you are familiar with the term PT or prothrombin, that's another hematologic test that relates to liver function, because why? The liver makes clotting factors. It makes factor 7, which when that goes down, the PT, INR goes up. That's an area where, again, we see liver function. Then, for those of you who know the kidney, you see creatinine and BUN, blood urea nitrogen. Those go up when the kidney function goes bad. And why does that happen in liver disease? Because the liver's stealing the blood. So those are the functional things. Now, again, anybody in here ever suffer through a liver biopsy? Oh, yeah. You know, that just tells me how old you are, because we are not doing them very often.
I object.
We do it now mostly to define malignant from non-malignant, or, you know, unfortunately we still have to do it to confirm rejection, but that's going to go away in the not so distant future. But we try to do assessment of liver scar, of liver fibrosis, of cirrhosis without invading your body these days. And we do it by taking blood tests and calculating a score. And you see the liver fibrosis scores are the FIB-4, APRI, or the ELF, a new, more recently approved enhanced liver fibrosis score. Very expensive, a little bit more sensitive and specific, but not nearly enough to justify its much higher cost than running a FIB-4 or an APRI on you, in my opinion.
What is the methodology for doing that test?
Which one?
The ELF.
So there are three tests, there's three products in the blood that go up directly when your liver is making fibrosis. So they are hyaluronic acid, 3-MPT, and another one that I have forgotten for the moment. But those three things are difficult to test for, so that's where the expense comes in. So you put those three products into a very arcane calculation that spits out a number. But it requires that you have specific proteins that go up when your liver is making more fibrotic tissue than it
So
should.
do they have to like centrifuge to find that, or is there another way of?
All blood that's taken from your body into a tube is definitely centrifuged, because you have to get rid of the red blood cells to do all these tests. So every test you have, you see here, is from the serum of centrifuged blood. Does that help?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? So, in addition to liver tests, we do liver imaging, and I appreciate the introduction of ERCP, and I just highlighted for you where the acronym comes from. Endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography. We don't like to do that all day long. ERCP, and truly, it is a very, very specific test, and still needs to be done to distinguish between the sister disease of PSC. All you PBCers out there, what do you got? Primary biliary cholangitis. So primary sclerosing cholangitis, primary biliary cholangitis, they're both diseases of the biliary tree. Used to, and still probably for you PBCers, sometimes the only way we could distinguish between the two was with liver biopsy, but now that we have MRI, abdominal CT, that's not nearly as commonly needed as before. And finally, the old-fashioned ultrasound's been around for decades. We used to get a lot of information, but 40 years ago CT came along, and about 20 years ago MRI. We can almost, recreate your liver in 3D with these imaging techniques. The last thing we do, however, to distinguish between low areas of scar or fibrosis in the liver and cirrhosis is determine its stiffness, and that is called transient elastography. The trade name for the machine is called the FibroScan. Anybody out here had a FibroScan? Okay, so you know they're just bouncing sound waves off of your liver to determine how quickly they move through your liver. And a sound wave in a stiff liver moves faster than a sound wave in a jello-like liver. And so the high number you get for the fibrosis score from the FibroScan indicates advanced fibrosis cirrhosis, and the low number says, yep, it's still like jello, not much scar.
What's the happy number that doctors typically look for?
Happy number is anything under 8. That varies a little bit by disease, but anything under 8, definitely minimal fibrosis. Once you get to 10, 12, you're getting fibrosis stage 2, and anything above that, you're getting into 3. Anything 15, probably cirrhosis. Anything 20 or greater, definitely cirrhosis.
So 55 is not good.
Yeah, 55, that liver is going to be like a 2x4. It's going to be that hard.
What's the difference between MRI and MRE?
Magnetic resonance elastography is an MR method of doing the same thing as transient elastography. So if you've had an MRE, you lie on the table and they actually put a little device on your belly and thump it, and then the magnetic imagery of your liver is then checked rather than computed tomography. And again, the images are beautiful, but is it worth $6,000? Probably not. So MRE, like every new test that's better, it also comes with a much bigger ticket. And quite frankly, with transient elastography, which is absolutely non-invasive and easy and quick and much cheaper, and a FIB4 or an APRI, we can do almost as well. Okay, I think it's time to talk to Dan again. Yeah, take it on. Well,
I appreciate the excitement, though. Shout out to this guy. I'm also aware of the clock too, so I'm probably going to sort of fast forward through this next part in the interest of time, because we definitely want to open it up for questions. I know Dr. Box has a few more things that he'd like to touch on as well. So once I had the ERCP, apologize, and diagnosed with PSC, this was December of 2001, and I apologize. I probably should have given the timeline earlier to give some people perspective. So December of 2001, I was diagnosed with PSC, and basically lived pretty stable until roughly August of 2004. And then in 2004, I had spiked a fever. It turned out that I had a blockage in the main bile duct of the liver, and doctors wanted me to go for a procedure to have a stent put in to open up that passageway. And they were hoping that by opening up the passageway that, it would buy me some time so that I didn't have to be transplanted. So put the stent in, they take it out. About 6 weeks later, my liver enzymes go sideways again, and I'm informed that there's actually no treatment options left for me as a patient, and that I need to get listed for transplant. And that's where sort of you have this existential crisis of, can't be me. I don't want to hear this right now. So internally, what's going on? Shut up, liver, you're fine. Right? Shut up, liver, you're fine. Now, I know that this is normally associated with people that have drank too much in Mardi Gras, New Orleans. that might be where the reference came from, but it actually is a true experience where fear settles in and you start to realize now that I have a fatal liver disease that only transplant is gonna fix. And you beg and plead with your own organ to say, please, stop. We need to go through this together. And there were nights where I did have conversations with my liver saying, please, I need you and you need me. So let's come to some agreement here. So shut up, liver, you're fine. There were days where it was like, no, you're a good liver. Don't blame yourself. And then other days it was, shut up, liver. Just work. Expletive. And that's sort of where it went. And I ended up getting listed for transplant in January of 2005, and which was about just over 3 years after I had been diagnosed with PSC, and I was transplanted in March of 2005. And Dr. Box, I'm just going to fly through this. That's good. So, come transplant, right? I know nothing about transplant. So very quickly, what did I have to do? I had to get transplant tough, right? And what is tough? You guys have a disease, you know. Tough isn't strength. Tough isn't I'm gonna do 100 push-ups and I'm gonna be better from liver disease. Tough is educating yourself. It's being kind to yourself. It is eating right and exercising. You know, if my wife says, I gotta eat tofu, I gotta eat tofu, right? Maybe not tofu. She knows what I'm talking about. But you get the point, right? There's a lot that goes into liver disease. And if you want to live and if you want to be successful, the old adages of eating right and exercising are going to be pretty big. So I had to get transplant tough. And fortunately I did. And it takes a village to do that. And for all of you in here, this is part of that village, right? So thank God that villages like this exist. So I was transplanted on March 12th of 2005. And just so happens to be that in March of this year, I got upgraded. I got upgraded to transplant warrior. 20 years. I seriously couldn't have done it, certainly without my wife, all joking aside. She's been an incredible rock for me. She's here today. But friends, family, people like yourselves, organizations like this that make it better and easier for us as transplant patients. My heart goes out to everyone here who's suffering from liver disease, because I wish I could take it all away from you folks, right? And that's part of being the warrior, is being empathetic and understanding, not just hearing what people are going through, but feeling it. I feel it. I know what you've been through. Dr. Box feels it. He's been through it. Even though he's the expert, he's been through it. He knows, right? And even though that people look and say, okay, 20 years, that's a great accomplishment. That's not the greatest thing that's happened to me this year. Let me show you what's the greatest thing that happened to me this year.
I know, right?
GLI, folks. The value that community has of people with shared visions and shared goals to overcome adversity is infinitely stronger than any one of us can imagine. We're here to lift each other up higher than we can lift ourselves. And to any extent that I can do that for you, please, if you see me in the hallways, stop me and say, Dan, we need to talk. I'd be happy to do that. But knowing now that forever, for the rest of my life, I'm part of this community that Donna has created and has now grown exponentially since those early days of 12 or 15 patients. And thank God it's not Panera Bread anymore. We actually do get Diet Mountain Dew. It's so important for the longevity and for our health to be able to have these types of organizations. So these are my final comments before a question and answer, but thank you to GLI for hosting this event. And it's been an absolute honor and privilege to share a stage with someone as esteemed as Dr. Box. So thanks to all of you, and I look forward to getting to know you in the days and years ahead. So thank you.
interest of time, I'm just going to stop here. If you have any additional questions for Dan or me, now's the time. We have about 4 minutes left. Happy to take them. Yes.
Hold for a mic just so that everyone can hear. We'll bring it to you quickly.
Thank you. Thank you both for the presentation. Thank you for the detailed anatomy of the liver. I have not been through that before, so it's exponentially helpful. If you have scarring on your liver, so you are cirrhosis, does the location of the scarring matter as to whether or not you're gonna be more well compensated, less, and what happens? Like, based on the anatomy, does the percent of scarring or the location of the scarring matter on your journey?
The location of the scarring matters relative to how it affects the blood flow of the liver, most importantly. The liver is a remarkable organ in that any part of the liver, any lobule can do any task that's asked of it. So it is truly a remarkable organ. That's how it can regenerate, right? It gets everything it needs, blood from the heart, blood from the gut. So your liver is a remarkably resilient organ. But if the scar is around the blood vessels that are bringing blood into the liver, what we call portal hypertension, high pressure in the portal vein that backs up, that gives us the bleeding varices, that creates the pressure that leads to ascites, that is where the nature of the scar matters. In Dan's disease, for instance, sometimes there's never portal hypertension because it is sporadic and it's just out there, big wedge shaped of nothing but scar and in a collection of normal liver. And the portal hypertension never occurs, or it doesn't occur to a degree that drives the score of the MEL test. So yes, it can be diffuse, it can be spotty. If it's obstructing blood flow, it makes a difference. And this is just a picture of a fellow with ascites, jaundice, and these are this is all breast tissue in this guy's breast. This is not just fat man boobs. These are true breast development in an individual, a male with advanced liver disease, and then you see all these scattered, very funky little blood vessels called spider telangiectoma. And then his muscles are wasting. That's called sarcopenia. Just sort of a little gimmick.
Say that
So
again.
I was just gonna follow up question to portal hypertension. So that's the reason for my question, because I have portal hypertension, probably the thing that scares me the most. Is there a test or something to do to monitor that more closely? Because I feel like you get a broad swath of tests, but portal hypertension is the thing that keeps me up at night, literally.
Right. Well, the good news is we no longer have to stick a monitoring device into your hepatic vein. As we learn more and more how to use transient elastography, we can look at splenic pressures. That hasn't totally negated the use of the invasive radiological study to determine portal pressures, but we will ultimately replace the need to do that 90% of the time by looking at how stiff your spleen is, not how stiff your liver is. So, and then there's a crude way to do it with ultrasound, blood flow that is going the wrong way, definitely portal hypertension. But the degree of portal hypertension, we have to use either a radiologic study or transient elastography.
We want to take more questions, but real quickly, if you know a medication that you have taken or that someone would take for portal hypertension, stand up. The first two to stand up. Portal hypertension. There's one. Give the lady a prize. There's two. What medication do you? So if anyone has ever had a varicose bleed, just to comfort these two, raise your hand if you survived a varicose bleed. Okay, ladies. Thank you. We have one more question on this side.
Where have you been all my life? Can you say those two words like you said before about the spider sarca something again? You called them something.
Sarcopenia, muscle wasting.
Yeah, but what was the
That's
other one?
associated with frailty. And what else?
I don't know, you said another one that.
The spider.
Oh, spider telangiectasia.
Yeah, that
So, there are little tiny red splotches called petechiae, that's just due to low platelet count. But spider angiomata are little arteriolar blood vessels, again hyperestrogenized, that come to the surface. They have a little point at the end. You can actually see the blood pulsing.
Yeah.
If you put your finger on it, it goes away, and that little spider webby looking blood vessel around it, that goes away. You take your finger off, and it comes right back. And
Okay.
that goes away once you get a new liver.
Okay, thank you. I do have a quick question. So I actually do have portal hypertension and I have stage 4 cirrhosis as well. I go every 6 months to get endoscopies, and I usually have 3 to 4 of my varices banded. With that, my ascites acts up quite a bit. I've been told that I cannot go in and get the fluid drained because it's not in my organs, it's in my cells. So I basically have to just deal with it and suffer the pain. Is this common or is this right? Because is there anything I can do to ease the pain when this happens? It's not
Well,
common.
fluid collects within the tissues themselves as well as within the abdominal cavity. And if you don't have, if the cause of your distension is not due to fluid residing, free flowing in the abdominal cavity, it's just trapped within the cells because you don't make enough albumin, quite frankly. It's all related. And until you get to the point that you have a big, terribly distended abdomen with
Yeah.
free
I
flowing
gained
fluid.
22 pounds overnight last summer.
Pardon me?
22 pounds of fluid.
Yeah, so you're probably storing some of that in your legs as well as the tissues in your belly as well. And yeah, you can store a lot of free fluid, trapped between the cells in your body.
So there's nothing I can do until it's
Well,
transplanted?
diuretics is all you can do
Yeah.
until it gets to a place you can tap.
These are really good questions and such great answers. And so if anyone's ever had ascites and had to have a paracentesis, let's just in solidarity raise our hands and give comfort to each other. That's why we're here together in this room.